Thank you, everyone. And Maureen, do you want to do a roll call? Okay.
Ian Bailey here. Diane Jorsey,
Here.
Tim Vigma,
Here.
Brian Rogan. Not
Um,
personally present.
no, let's excuse him for now, but
Scott Newman.
I just got a text from him. There's been an emergency with his mom. He asked to be excused.
Hope all's well.
I hope so too.
George Millard,
Here.
Chairman Bailey,
Here.
John Dakin,
Present.
Reed Biella Jr.
Present. I'm here.
Yay.
I'm here. Live.
Okay. All right. So, thank you. All right. So the next item is the commission business. It's a discussion and direction to staff regarding preparation of proposed amendments to the Berlin zoning regulation responsive to Connecticut General Assembly Special Session PA 25-1.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Biella and I seated in place of Commissioner Rogan and Commissioner Hamel.
Yes, of course. Thank you. All right. But as it was a discussion, you'd be joining us at the big table
Well, commission
anyway.
business, so
No,
let's
all
make
right.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right. So do we have a, yeah, thank you.
We quit our connection down two road.
All righty. So we have been distributed the total bill. And we were all asked to read it and stuff, and it's, it's pretty intense. It's 107 pages that was distributed to all the commissioners. And now we have sort of condensed a little sections that have been provided to us here as well. And I guess we're just going to start the discussion off with the stuff that pertains basically to planning and zoning, what we do. So we've cut through some of the
Like,
minutia.
Just
Go
to
ahead.
ask a question before we get into the
Of course you
details. This is kind of the first time this has been in front of us, and I'm just curious as to what the overall high-level plan, it's like eating an elephant bite at a time. What the overall plan is, because as I went through certain things, there seems like there's different timelines associated with different things. While I know this, the transit community is, transit oriented districts is important, whatever. But one of the things that came through that's already in play is this 2 to 9 that's effective July 1st. So there seems to be that there's probably a lot of modifications to and process issues associated with that in and by itself, where it seems like some of this other stuff, and I'm not saying that's what you have in here, I haven't read it, but some of the other stuff maybe has a time lag because like OPM hasn't done some of their stuff. There's dates in the 2017 and 2018 and so forth. So I'm not even clear like when some of this has to be done, where it all goes with these regional COGs that are out there and when their deliverables are and so forth. But it seems like there is an urgency to do that whole 2 to 9 and get a lot of language there as how we're even going to do these summary reviews and who's going to do them, the commission, you, staff, things like that. So
you've actually hit on precisely what
okay,
we're attempting to do
okay,
is, and to give the commission a little bit of comfort level. We're having regular meetings with the CROG as well, and specifically the housing growth plan stuff. However, and what they are doing, what they're directly, helping the towns evaluate whether they want to be part of the regional plan or part of the or do their own, and feeding us are updating us on OPM things, so that we're not all checking OPM site every day to see if there's something new. And, so we'll get the information from OPM as well as it comes
Okay.
through there with their deadlines. We're expecting some stuff in October again. I actually have keyed up the OPM website, but I don't really think we're going to need it tonight for the purposes we're doing. And the other level of comfort is there was a straw poll at the last meeting that we had. How many towns have actually adopted the regulations yet that for the July 1st? And plenty of towns were still working on them and hope to do so by the end of the summer. There was this expectation, wrongfully so evidently, that the legislature was going to extend that July 1st deadline during their session that ended at the end of May, and they didn't revisit those deadlines because of the amount of information we were expecting to get and guidance. A lot of towns paused to wait for that extension and some guidance, and we
Yeah.
instead said, okay, now we're all working. We also in the Dropbox, file that, and I know George has looked at it. We've tried to dump in some regulations from other towns that have adopted regulations already that are responsive to those sections you talked about for.
Just for my clarification, because I'm a little confused on the role of the CROGs. Aren't they dealing predominantly with the transit-oriented districts? Or are they dealing with everything?
They are dealing with everything in essence because they are trying to support their member municipalities at
Okay.
each stage.
Okay.
They are going to be focused on the regional housing growth plan and the setting of the affordable housing goals. They are already in process. I mean, I could speak to the South Central cog, because I get all those notifications. I don't get all the Capital Region notifications, which is the cog that Berlin is in. But I know that different cogs have hired consultants to do the regional housing growth plans, and others are doing them in-house. Some of them are actually adding staff to prepare the regional housing growth plan. So that is happening. And there are a number of them in terms of the amendments to the zoning regulations. They either hired a consultant, they offered again staff support to the member municipalities. That's something that's been done, I think, pretty much across the board. They are continuing to educate, have opportunities for webinars and some meetings that are focused on housing and issues that are associated with the Public Act. Yukon Clear did do some training sessions. They did because there were GIS updates. I think that's something that we had mentioned last time. And there have been some other opportunities to learn more too. Now we're starting to get more offerings that are focused on the housing growth plans. It seems like I feel like now we're almost getting those on a weekly basis. Some of them have been held, some of them are in the future. And that's one thing too. I mean, if because as members of planning and zoning or just members of the public, I mean, you can attend any of those COG meetings. And again, some of them are in person, some of them have, I think most of them do offer a remote meeting option, even when they are
Usually.
in person. But you can too watch, some of the meeting recordings. They're available through the COG websites if you want to like preliminarily educate yourself on the housing growth plan. But tonight, what we're focused on, because we do have time on the housing growth plan, because regional is going to set the affordable housing goal for each member municipality. They're gonna do the regional plan, and then we have a short period of time as a member municipality to let them know whether or not we're intending to comply with their plan. And as far as the affordable housing goal is concerned, to let them know if we disagree with that affordable housing goal, You know, we need to communicate that with them too. So there is a statutory time frame, but we are a ways off from receiving both that goal and receiving the regional plan. So we're focused again on dealing, you said the as of right provisions that are contained. You know, principally, we're talking, as we presented to you last time, about sections 11 through 21. And then Maureen handed out 49 because it has a piece that deals with the parking issue. But we're dealing with, you know, transit-oriented middle housing and mixed-use development and changes to parking. And also, we do want to talk about with the first piece, the ability to do design guidelines. And then, as you correctly pointed out, too, what is the process going to be? What are the components of the summary review? The idea with summary review is, of course, to have not have sort of a formal proceeding with, you know, the requirements of having to wait a period of time and to notice and have the opportunity, you know, to kind of stretch out a process, if you will. That's the whole point. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious. The summary review has been present in the general statutes actually for some time now. But there has been some tweaking to it. But Madam Chair, I know you had a question.
Well, you just sort of said something that caught my attention. You said that the regionals would set goals for,
The affordable housing goal, that is something that we did talk about last time. That was part of our presentation to you. They are going to be setting an affordable housing goal for each member municipality. And then there is a process of responding to that. I'm happy to just put that provision into an email for you, so you could take another look at that.
okay, so,
For you.
so correct me if I'm wrong. So they could come out and say Berlin needs 25%, but Hebron only needs 3. Is
So
that
there-
correct?
So there is a limitation within the Public Act. They can't assign more than 20% to any member municipality. But it is quite possible. Yeah, they could you could have 2 neighboring communities that don't have the same affordable housing goal.
Aren't they setting a regional goal first and then parsing it out to the towns in that region? That was my understanding.
Well, I think we have to see exactly how it's
We
all
don't know
gonna,
what they're going to do.
exactly how it's all gonna
Yeah.
play out, because it could be along the lines of fair share, and you know, those numbers were distributed. And you know, there was a state employee that was sort of overseeing that. She I think is still sort of part of you know, what the procedures are and the developments are on this. So again, you know, when it comes time to really look closely at that, we're going to do a little history for you on, you know, what we know sort of the background has been. And the other thing is too, the reason why I said, you know, if you are very interested, and you know, I know people have daily lives, you give a lot of time to your planning and zoning commission obligations, and I do recognize that. But if you want to sort of follow the process, the best thing to do, you don't necessarily have to attend the meetings in person or you know, watch them participate remotely live when the meetings are happening. The recordings are available. It's good to kind of stay up to speed on the progress on the development, I think, of the regional plan, so that you do have an understanding of, you know, how they may be arriving at the setting of the goals. I think so. That's beneficial to you. I mean, much of it is data-based. You know, we know that from when we developed your affordable housing plan. You know, we have an understanding based upon, you know, what they were looking for from the consultants in terms of, you know, the data that drove you know, some of the components of those plans. So that's still all in play.
Is that intended to set a new criteria for 8-30G? Because my understanding is that's not going away.
Not changing the statute, that is
Okay.
not, you know, in terms of more broadly, not, you know, there've been no fundamental changes to what we know the statute to be. You know, I know that the commissioners are well versed in the reversed burden and the standard that's contained in the Affordable Housing Appeals Procedure, which is 830G. So no, that has not happened yet.
Okay.
But we, you know, we watch everything. So
Oh,
Thank you.
thank goodness for that.
So
All right.
our COG, you know, Capital Regional, has been one of the principal presenters at a lot of the informational sessions, both for planners, for commissions, for staff, and in general. And so pretty confident in the just the information that they're disseminating overall. You know, there are things that are going to have to be vetted through the statute anyway, because, you know, anytime there's new language, there's going to be controversy as to what it means. However, the PowerPoints that have been used in the webinars we've attended, we've also uploaded to the site. So, you know, you can look through a webinar if you don't want to listen to a whole meeting immediately, or get a sense of what, and they may find that the webinars that maybe had been presented in last November or December versus one that was just done in May or June may be a little updated as they became more familiar or got more information from OPM as well, and their own counsel, and, you know, diving into the statute, so, or the Public Act. So,
Mm.
so there's lots of resources out there, and we're monitoring them all very closely. But it is a lot to consume and digest all at once, which is and again, in response to George's question, why we're kind of chunking it. So this is the first chunk that is proposing to modify the regulations, the Berlin zoning regulations, in response to some of the provisions in Public Act 25, Special Session 25-1 that are either mandated or things for you to consider. So that's where the working draft that I handed out comes into play. And if there's no other questions, we'll dive into it.
Okay. Let's dive.
Okay, you get it on the shared screen. It should help everyone. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger if I can, so that you can see it, but I don't, how did I can do that?
Can you do control and wheel?
Here we go.
Okay.
So, I start out really basic with things that are definitions that they've added that may or may, they're not common language. And therefore, zoning regulations should be responsive to it. In my opinion, these are the two that on page 1 that are definitions that should be added to the regulations and addressed immediately. The way I formulated this was I tried to, in the parentheses, you'll see number 1, Berlin zoning regulations, 2B definitions. Add new, above that I put section 11, number 3, page 42, so that you could see where in the bill that definition is. And so it's in this first packet on page 42. So you could kind of.
Again, starts with section 11. Section 11 of the Public Act is your definition section.
Mhm.
I think when we get to, you know, there's going to be other definitions in here that are likely, as we work further through, we may want to add to the regulations further down the road, but these are the immediate responsiveness. And again, if any of you feel you think something should be added, provide the directions to us or we can discuss it at the public hearing or prior to posting the regulation we come up with. But the first one is transit community middle housing, which is means a residential building containing not less than 2 dwelling units, but not more than 9 such units, including but not limited to townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, perfect sixes, and cottage clusters as defined in November special session PA 25-1, section 11.3. And one of the things I thought that the commission should think about is whether or not you think that the definition of any of those housing types should also be included in definitions. What's a cottage cluster? Although
Perfect sixes.
the statute tells us what it is, so you could either refer to the statute, or we can include it in our regulations. And so that's an option, direction.
3-story residential building section.
What a perfect six.
I'm not the only one who doesn't know what that is.
Yeah, I think there's
What?
I've never heard of that term.
303, right?
2.
So it's Number 5.
Well, it's right below it, yeah.
Number 5, perfect six means a 3-story residential building with a central entrance containing 2 dwelling units per story.
Okay.
S-
I see it.
Six.
I got you. Yeah.
So it's in the statute, but of course we can define it as well.
But there's no need because you referred to the statute for definitions.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so it's, up to the commission.
Willing.
And,
But it's all going 3 stories.
I'm usually encouraged that if something is defined somewhere and referenced, in case that gets amended, you don't want to have to amend your regulation to
Exactly.
keep up if you miss that they amended it to say something a little different. And building code hopefully also reflects similar language. Doesn't always, and our definitions aren't always the same as building code, but the more consistent you can be, the less confused public and commission members are.
So the transit community middle housing development would be something within the center of town, no?
No, any commercial area.
Oh, we'll actually get to that when we get to where it would be allowed. I want
I guess-
the definitions first because we do
Yeah.
have that to discuss.
All right, and my
Where?
concern is because it states a 3-story building. And I think if you start opening it up to something that is basically single-family homes or capes in the neighborhood, now you have a 3-story building.
I didn't bring up my copy of the regulations because I changed.
Oh,
my-
that's okay.
However,
but you-
most of our commercial zones allow, in most, if not all of our commercial zones, allow more than 3 stories or 3 or more stories anyway. It's, it's not residential zones. We're talking commercial zones.
I think the important thing to understand here is this is not debatable. This is
I'm
not,
trying to understand it.
this part of it is not debatable. This is new legislation that says you shall do this. You're not deciding whether you're going to allow it or not. You're being told you're going to. That's the whole gist of the.
Yes, but
law.
I also understood that there was an opt-out or to do a municipal plan as opposed to,
That's the housing growth plan.
all right, so
That's down the road. That's a
Yeah.
growth plan. These are
I'm just trying to,
regulation. Oh,
I
and
get it too.
as many webinars on this for professional staff if it was easy. Or we all would have just been, okay.
do they know what they did?
done.
Sometimes wonder if
it's a
these
lot of-
legislators,
I don't have any idea.
but they never read it.
There's a lot of aspects to it and we're
Yeah, all right, I understand, and I'm not trying to be contrary, I'm just trying to ask the questions as to understand it.
to deal with the where understanding the where, and we'll get to that. These are specifically,
Okay.
this part is specifically the definitions, because we want to prepare my goal is to prepare an amendment or phase one amendment that at least get going on the books and getting posted for a public hearing so that
That's not
we can
funny.
begin to our compliance.
So you said from a definition perspective, whether we should put it in. So we say PA 21, section 11.3, but something like perfect sixes, whatever. That specific one is identified, but it's identified in 5 and the other ones aren't. Cottage clusters are not identified in the statute. So I would say it's not in the statute as to,
Nothing.
no, that there's only one in there that is, and it's in section, it's number 5, not number 3.
What page you on?
No, George, it does refer to
picture-
3. I mean, it literally lists 3, but then you would go to.
No, what I'm saying is we're making an assumption that the definition of duplex, triplex, perfect sixes and cottage clusters is in the reg in section 11.3, and it's not.
No, I understand, but even if you just look at section 11, oh, I'm sorry. Right, it's the definition is not in section, if you're just looking at the statute, it's not in section 11.3. In order to understand what it is just by looking at the bill, you have to then go to number 5.
And what I'm saying is only one of these is defined in 5, only one. The other ones are not. Cottage clusters is not defined. Triplexes are not, I know what they are. I don't know what a cottage cluster is.
I don't know what a cottage.
I don't know what that is. That's why I bring it up.
I'm thinking
went
it's
to
like
look
a
for it and it's
Marjorie
not here.
Moore.
Maybe a reason, was
I'm
there
thinking it's a Marjorie Moore.
a reason why, maybe it's perfect sixes, one of those sort of, I don't know. I mean, that's a good point, George. I get what you're saying. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking. This is getting everyone heated.
No, it's not. I'm not,
It's just,
we can
it's just
define,
trying to
do it, but my argument,
wrap my
it's not
head.
defined.
Point.
Yeah.
Like I said, I found it someplace.
Good.
And now I don't have where I found it. I
Okay,
may have found it in one of the PowerPoints.
right.
They defined it for me and okay, we've got it.
But I mean, you're probably not gonna need a definition of townhouse in this legislation. Maybe you do for cottage cluster.
Well, I don't understand townhouse and the concept of a two building dwelling. How do you have a townhouse that's a 2-building dwelling? These are supposed to be a building.
No.
And so that's why I don't understand cottage clusters, and I don't understand the townhouse in the concept of 2 or not 2 to 9. The 2 to 9, in my understanding, is supposed to be in one dwelling, one building with that many dwellings in it, not in multiple buildings.
Here it allows for multiple buildings and that would be where the commission can, and I have to find it again.
Well, here's the ambiguity, the stuff that I saw. The ambiguity is, can you allow more than 1 2 to 9 on a parcel? That's where it's allowed to have more. You can have more than 1 2 to 9 on any particular parcel if we allow it, per se.
So, let's deal with the cottage cluster first. There is a definition elsewhere in the statutes, and it's an 8-1A. And it is, defined as a grouping of at least 4 detached housing units this is live work units per acre that are located around a common open area.
Okay.
Oftentimes, they almost look like, a square, if you will.
It's its own little apartment complex, mini
You
little.
know, they typically have a little porch. I mean, the ones that are the cottage clusters that I've seen.
I envision, for a cottage cluster, it's what I envisioned allowed with the planned,
I thought I
residential
saw some.
infill
I
development,
thought I saw
Snow's project. Ended up with, more townhouse design by the time you finished your settlement, but I think when working on that regulation, I think most of the commission was envisioning cottage cluster style development or that.
I don't think that's what he built.
I don't think so.
And again, that was the settlement.
He
The
built,
settlement was
Okay,
was
that's
different
fine.
because it extended beyond that
Well,
regulation.
It ultimately was not Little House.
That's what I'm saying, it's little houses, actually.
Yeah.
That's not little houses.
Right, but that I
Little
think,
houses.
I think it was the intent of the regulation and that, you know, if we
Right.
use that definition, we could actually update that regulation to create something that might,
I personally think it would be helpful to include the definitions, but
okay.
So I think that that's a very simple request that certainly will give you what the sort of typical working definitions are. I don't, I think if you want to be more descriptive than what the statute provides, because that is not in a definitional section that goes actually to the provisions of the Public Act. I think that it's something that is. more
Yeah.
descriptive.
Can I just ask one question? And we're getting a little bit beyond our discussion, but I'm trying to remember the state of play. So originally you had House Bill 5002, which was passed, I think, in 2024, vetoed by the governor. They didn't have enough votes to override his veto. Then we came up with 8002, which was in special session 25-1. No public, so now you anticipate my question. I don't know what exactly happened with 5002, but I know in this bill, there was no public hearing. So I think first of all, when we talk about no one knows what's in the bill, it's stemming from that, unfortunately. We've had legislation in the past like this, but this is obviously a major bill. And I think that by it not going through the public hearing process, it is suffering from some of the problems that Commissioner Millard is pointing out, like a lack of definition. Like why is perfect sixes defined, but not cottage
cottage
cluster,
cluster.
or why not, maybe not even townhouse?
Well-
So I think that is it fair to infer that that might be a reflection of a lack of process with our legislature?
Absolutely. And I will say, and I
What was the end game?
may have said this.
Blame it down our throat.
That at the Connecticut Association of Municipal Attorneys annual meeting held in June, the attorney who is, I won't use his name, but who has been involved in many of the seminars and webinars, and does participate in a lot of the educational opportunities that are offered to board and commission, said he has yet to meet a person who participated in the drafting of this public act.
Including him, who I know you
And
talked.
he has asked a lot of people. He knows that the typical associations and organizations that would have been consulted were not consulted. So I do want to speak to something, and I know Maureen said we're going to get to it, but it's in a comment of what Commissioner Millard said, that, we have to deal with this. It says shall, and so on and so forth. I cannot overemphasize to you that the language of this public act, and I think that the attorney, it sounds like you've heard his comments, he believes very strongly that some of this language is going to have to be litigated. But
Mhm.
one thing I want to just say to you, and this is not something that you're supposed to know, because it's something that comes up in litigation, but we have rules of statutory interpretation. And so you cannot look at section 16 in isolation. And a source of great frustration for me is when I hear some of, and this is in no means meant to be derogatory towards them, but some of the staff and some of these cogs saying that there was one particular recent meeting held in June that I listened to. And in fact, I played the recording for Maureen. I played the video because I wanted her to hear it. And a staff member was being asked by concerned staff from member municipalities, this cog was being asked about the transit-oriented piece. I really don't understand, was being expressed by planners, zoning administrators of some of the member municipalities. And the advice was given that we all know what middle housing is. You could just ignore the fact that it says transit-oriented. And I will tell you that that is legally incorrect. Okay. You need to read not just section 16, you need to start, and I focused you in my presentation, I did the PowerPoint and Maureen as well. You know, when we last kind of gave you an overview of this, we started out for our purposes, for what we're dealing with this as of right stuff, we're starting from 11, okay? You need to look at some of those definitions and understand that they very specifically point to the fact that the idea in this development is that the municipality is creating the district. Okay, if you look at
Yeah.
qualifying, I'm looking right in front of me. Qualifying rapid transit community. This is an 11. It's on page 43. It says, okay, contained within a transit-oriented district adopted by such municipality. Okay, and I've had this conversation with some applicants' attorney. One in particular is very active in New Haven County, and used to serve in the legislature. And he wanted to have a long discussion with me about this public act. And he said, the way that I read this is that the municipality has to create the district for any of this to come into play. Do you agree with me, Jennifer? And I said, well, if you're looking at this, okay, because you've got to look at it comprehensively, not in isolation of provisions. That is wrong.
Right.
That is not statutory interpretation in accordance with the law. And John could speak to this too. Jonathan, I'm not asking you to put on your attorney hat, but certainly we know the role that you play. That is the wrong advice out of the COGS. They are not attorneys. That is absolutely wrong. You got to read from the beginning to the end to understand there's an argument to be made that transit-oriented appearing in 16 is not meaningless. Okay? And is meant to be descriptive at a very minimum of middle housing, because that is a defined term, but arguably also of mixed use, because mixed use, that term appears 9 times in this act.
Mhm.
Okay. And in some instances, it's by itself. In some instances, it's got, again, it's joined with transit oriented. So we've got to be thoughtful about that. And so, you know, I know that so many commissioners are very discouraged in reading this, and in particular reading 16 and saying, oh, well, this is, so we've got to allow this just everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. I think, you know, and I know there's some arguments being made out there that this public act has got constitutional issues
Yeah.
with it. I'm sure some of you have heard that as
Mm-hmm.
well. What I think is that in the rush to try to do something, because such a short time frame was given, that we're sort of changing what we would normally do. And I don't get that. I think people have to slow down. They have to look at the Public Act in its entirety and recognize that these terms don't just appear in Section 16, they appear elsewhere. You have to consider, you know, what's in those other sections, what they're saying, and all is not lost. That's my message to you.
Well, and it's interesting because, to your point, statutory interpretation in Connecticut is you look to the text, the entire statute and its relationship to other statutes. It's the entire general statute of Connecticut general statutes, and you only look beyond it if there's ambiguity or if it creates an absurd and workable result. And those two things are going to be hammered quite a bit with these bills. But then again, what do you do at that point? Say it's ambiguous. How do we figure out what's the court's going to do? They're going to look at legislative history. What legislative history? It was jammed through. So this is going to be an interesting how this develops in the courts.
I'm scanning through this. I didn't read every page, I'll tell you that. But I just, on this page here, 46, qualified transit oriented community shall allow by right, as right, that they must allow the conversion of any residential development or commercial development into a development described as subdivision, but as right, is I've seen this words inside this many a times here. And that leaves us in discretionary, go on.
No,
'Cause
but
that's right.
No, but you've got to read the end of it. It says, described in subdivision 1 of this subsection, on any lot located in a transit-oriented district. Then look at the language.
Okay,
Section, you only read part of it.
okay. I just don't.
I mean, we have to define it.
Got create
We,
it.
it, there's a question of whether the Kensington overlay district could be considered one.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get approval for whatever we do. Okay,
Prepared. I prepared with the, um, I don't want to say, I'm going to use the word assumption,
Yeah.
although that's a little aggressive. That, yes, it does qualify. The purpose of it qualifies, whether it's of the appropriate size, et cetera. We have a half-mile radius that we studied when developing it. And the purpose of the regulation does meet the purpose, in my opinion, in the statute. Again, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not the litigator either,
Mhm.
you know, the one that the
Yeah.
judge or anything else, or the legislator. However, you know, I think the argument is there that this town proposed to the state that that is a transit-oriented district, because that's the purpose of the district in our
Mhm.
regulation. It meets, you know, some of the bullet points, or the bullet points that they have in this statute, and it says it right in the regulation, which I quoted, I think I quoted it. Page 2,
all right.
Yeah.
Really taking you south, I'm sorry.
so I think on page
Mhm.
2. So, you know, that hopefully that does it, but the commission, you know, in part of that discussion, and we'll jump ahead to that section, is the commission then deciding, as Jennifer was calling out, whether you want to include and interpret it as the transit-oriented district alone, and any transit-oriented, and what is it, the rapid transit as well, the bus.
Yeah, they have something
One
about
that's
bus
with regard to buses, because we do have bus routes, regular
and a
service
train.
in certain places, but this one's focused on the train station, which is the rapid.
Well, that's one of the
And-
bus lines too through
We-
there.
So the commission can consider adding other zones or other locations in town for a zone that's transit oriented, to allow for transit oriented middle housing in those zones, as, you know, where you designate.
Well, I'm still,
Is to interpret it that way.
okay,
I did make, for clarity purposes and ease of the people that were here, 3 copies of our zone, of the draft
Thank you.
zoning map that shows our newest, you know, all the amendments. When we have the public hearing for this, my intent was to also include, readopting the map, which is basically, this is the map, but we changed the colors.
Right.
So, if that'd help you,
Please.
you know, it actually works out well for 3 of them. You 2 need to share, and Leanne need to share. But you can see if you open the map at the bottom, without unfolding the whole thing, the bottom square shows the Kensington Village. That's the Kensington Village District is, more easily legible, I think, there than it is on the online. So that may or may not help. Something on here that I don't know why. Then I jump back to the definitions,
Yes.
just so
yes.
you know, that's the first page, is things added to the definitions. And the second definition that is in the statutes is summary review. And the wording exactly, you know, I kind of wording and made it work because of the way they worded it. able to be approved in accordance with the terms of a zoning regulation or regulations, including but not limited to the requirements concerning setbacks, lot size, building frontage, applicable to the proposed development, and without requiring that a public hearing be held, a variance or special permit or special exception be granted, or some other discretionary zoning action be taken, other than the determination that the site plan is in conformance with the applicable zoning regulations and that public health and safety will not be substantially impacted. So what it's saying is where the provisions in the regulations that are adopted elsewhere in the regulations that allow summary review. Summary review means it can't be a special permit, it can't be a public hearing item. It meets the regulations, it meets
So
criteria of the zoning regulations, and therefore it's approvable, which is not unlike a standard site plan in a lot of ways. Not always, but in a lot of ways. And tandem to that, then the commission, any town's commission needs to decide what the process for summary review is, which is it coming to the commission and the commission saying, yes, it meets all these requirements and you're good. Or whether the review done by staff, that's done by staff, or, you know, somebody putting a shed in their backyard or a pool up, or, you know, things like that. So it's a matter of, it meets the criteria. Does the staff do it? Does the planning and zoning commission do it? And are there other aspects? Because there are aspects
So-
with regard to public health and safety will not be substantially impacted. So that may be a criteria that the commission says, we want to make that determination. We don't want staff to make that determination, but you can't hold a public hearing to hear the arguments with regard to it.
So a question on the variance. So does this mean that, let's say we had a setback requirement of 25 feet or whatever. So my understanding of this would be then, they cannot then go to ZBA and get that reduced to 15 feet and have that and come in here under this provision, because we won't accept the variance.
If they
Good
prove the
question.
elements of a variance, they could.
No,
If they demonstrate, I'm sorry.
because the rule, if we're gonna do the summary thing, the rules are the rules. That's
Well,
my understanding. Am I
yeah.
misinterpreting
Yeah, but
that?
if you can demonstrate a hardship and the other elements of a variance, I suppose you could get one.
I think this law is saying no, that's what I'm asking.
So you raise an interesting question, right? Because really it's about the separation of authority between the Planning and Zoning Commission and your
CBA.
Zoning Board of Appeals. So, and remember that we've got that language at the end of is it 8.6 or 8.7 that talks about use variances and the importance of putting in the zoning regulations, you know, sort of those parameters that's incumbent upon in your planning capacity, right? It's incumbent upon the Planning and Zoning Commission to make clear in the zoning regulations sort of the parameters for the granting of use variances, right? That's the really ultimately in the simplest way, right? And there's case law around that sentence. John's shaking his head. Again, I'm feeling like I'm gonna need to send you guys some emails because you know, to answer that, I almost think we gotta kind of look at that. Because that's something to consider. But let's give some thought to that. Because I think that again, the whole point of this is, you know, like the changing the parking, and we've said this before. The backstory of it is that a lot of affordable projects have been denied, because, or allegedly denied for not having enough parking.
Okay.
And so, you know, that's why you're seeing what's going on in the parking area, right? And then another constant complaint is you know, having to incur the expense of, you know, going to a public hearing on a project that's a small project and the cost associated with that and so on and so forth. So that's the result. You know, we know where summary review is originating from by its language. But George Reese is in it. I didn't really think about it, but I will. Now I'm going to give you based upon my age, my experience, and have litigated a number of variance application appeals. What I think.
Okay.
So that's, you know, the definition of summary review, and then it may need to be, you know, further tweaked to include that, or.
Well, I agree with the definition. I'm just wondering
Oh.
how CBA comes into play.
Off the top of my head, I'm thinking clarifying that actually belongs where the regulation allowing summary review is as opposed to.
Okay.
As the definition is in the statute.
I agree.
So those are the two starting points for, you know, the beginning of what we're looking at, and what is the basic requirements. There may be other definitions as work through this and talk about it, that by the time we propose an amendment, we say, hey, how about adding this definition? Or you may say to me, I think we need to add that definition. So, you know, I think there's room for further discussion.
Oh, could I ask you a question so on the definition of the transit community middle housing, correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be like two variants of it though, okay? So you could have, say we're in a commercial area, whatever, you could have strictly a residential development with nothing but dwellings. Or you can have the, you know, the mixed use type of things. Do we need to define those types of two things too within this so people understand it?
That is an option.
And I was gonna say, and I think that's where, when we're going to the content of the regulation itself.
Okay, okay,
Regulates the use, we may find that we put words in there, but then you want to add more definition.
okay,
And I think, you know, I want to let everybody to know you can do that, you can keep that.
okay. Thank you.
Let's flip to the second.
Does Diane or Steve Biella online have any comment or question at this point? I would just want to take a break here.
I don't have any real substantive comment other than under summary review, what is, Maureen, I can't see the bottom of the definition, but under summary review, what's meant by substantial? Substantially impacted. How is that determined? Is it greater than 50%? Is it based on percent? Is it just kind of a
Okay.
feeling?
In my opinion, and of course Jennifer is here as well as, you know, the commission as a whole. I think much like the 830G regulation where you have a substantial impact, it's something for the commission to, or for, yeah, the commission to decide what that means and whether you put it in a quantitative number in the regulation, or whether that's part of what I was discussing with regard to whether the staff or the commission should make that determination of whether it's substantially impacted, health and safety. What does that?
My
What that means.
my reading of stuff that I've researched says the more subjective you make it, the worse off you're going to be. You should define what you know, like sight lines, fire truck access, all those kinds of things, sewer and water capabilities, all those kinds of things.
Infrastructure.
Two things we've always talked about is obviously Commissioner Zigmund's always concerned about fire engines being able to
Right.
have access. I always talk about the Kensington Fire District. I mean, on Farmington Avenue, I mean, how many, I know in the past we've had people who come here and staff, maybe not present, but who've said, oh, no, it's not a problem. Well, you could say that all day long, but
Right.
keep saying that into the next 25, 30 years until there's another Waterbury incident.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
so when we want to talk about health and safety, those are two good examples.
so to, I think Diane's question, it needs to be defined, or
Define substantially
you know,
impact.
not as a definition, but what we mean by it at
Yeah.
least.
What's
as
the limit? What's the gauge?
As the most,
Yeah.
you can't get everything, but as much as we can point out what the criteria should be.
Also, burden to any, thing that we have, fire, police.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's exactly what it is.
Tim, microphone.
Yeah. No one can hear you, Tim.
Sorry.
Well,
to be-
Like you're in space.
It was so abrupt.
No, that's okay.
This is undue burden to the town. Okay, what is the undue burden when you're denying something for that? Is it the police department can't handle it, the fire department is not equipped,
You're still not using your microphone.
whatever. It's close enough.
No, you better make it, well, because you want to make sure Diane and
And
Kyle-
hear me?
I couldn't at first. All I heard was mumble, but now I hear you.
Oh. I got a lot of mumble all the time, so don't worry.
Yeah, but
now,
she's
I,
not.
now I can hear the mumble.
Okay, thank you.
Well, but these are topics that could have been, these are topics that could have been brought up in a public hearing.
Yeah. If there was a public hearing.
Locally, because now this has been thrust on us. Now we're not even debating it, we're just.
Well, we're actually rewriting it for them.
That's right.
It's sort of put upon us to rewrite this and we don't even want it.
Well, right, we gotta figure out definitions that we have to figure it out on our own. So we're having-
Make it work for us.
I think that's. the
I
way
don't
to
know.
go.
Is that,
Sure. Let's define townhouse.
what is it? It's a house within town. Could we all agree?
Who's gonna disagree with us?
Oh, I know. No, there's a lot of work that's got to go into this and it has been put in by staff and
Yeah,
our attorneys. So
thank you.
we do appreciate
yeah,
that.
thank you both. This is.
And we don't take this lightly. It's overwhelming
It's overwhelming.
and it's scary.
It's a lot, which is why you didn't get it well in advance of this meeting. We're instead working through it.
Well, the book was bad enough.
It is things that we're like, well,
Maureen,
we
just,
didn't make this decision yet.
Maureen, in your career as a town planner, have you seen this sort of seismic shift in planning or in zoning happen in your career? Is this like the biggest?
Yeah, I think so.
I
This
took
is-
a bunch of years off in the middle to raise my kids and there were changes.
You kind of knew
The-
what was going on. Yeah.
Kids and the coming back to work that were some major shifts that I was like, whoa.
Oh, okay.
With that regulation change and stuff. So no, I think they happen incrementally and generationally. You get a new mindset coming in with, a different legislature or a different, a mindset. Boomers think differently than millennials think differently than.
Wondering
Gen
what you
Z.
thought of it. Okay.
No, I think it happens. It's just in that.
The last big one was 8-30G.
Right, well,
That was really hard.
that's the one I was thinking.
Yeah.
Zoning regulations in 1944 were like 40 pages, if that.
I love it.
And there were 3 zones. So over time and in response to
Well, I think
cultural changes as well as economic changes, you just get things.
I don't think the US Supreme Court even recognized zoning as a right of towns until like what, the 40s or something, in the middle of the.
Yeah, I think it was the 40s or,
think
yeah,
it was-
yeah.
Not even 100 years we've had this.
I see a change, I see a good sized change every 10 years.
Yeah,
About every 10 years. About every 10 years, I know the first one I saw that was the major one is when Bill
Right.
Gates, this guy here,
so
that's 20 years ago.
I think we got through page 1.
Can I just, ask Diane, can you see the whole screen now?
No.
Because we can see it on ours, on the screens in the room, Which makes me think it's a setting on your computer that maybe you need to, in the upper left corner of the upper right corner, you might need to change your view. Maybe,
Let me try.
not sure, but I feel badly that you can't see because I don't.
This will appear on YouTube, but Zoom audience, I want. There's a
No,
Well,
so
there's a screen.
what I'm seeing is where the line above add new that says section 11, number 3, page 42. From there down is what I see.
Okay.
We don't even see that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all I
add
should
new.
say.
Yeah, that's all there is.
But number 3,
Oh.
page 42 is what I have at the top of right now
Okay.
of that screen because we
Oh, 42.
worked our way down through the page and I wanted the font big enough to see it in the room. So now you see the top of the whole page. I did email out this document to the commission members. You all got it, but I sent that as well if that's easier for you that are joining online. Okay, I'm gonna flip to page 2 now,
All right, flipping to page 2.
which, circling back to the discussion of qualifying rapid transit community. So on page 43 rather, they define what a qualifying rapid transit community is, and this is what I just stated that, Commissioner Millard commented on previously that the Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management actually makes the determination, but, Berlin has the rapid transit station, the established Kensington Village Overlay District, and underneath that, in this document, I pasted in the purpose of that district. And that district seems to hit the key points of it. Promote the development of transit-oriented, pedestrian-friendly, village-type environment within walking distance, blah, 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 within walking distance of the train station. Skipping forward, allow and encourage mixed-use development that offers high intensity of uses, help provide a variety of housing opportunities in Berlin, enhance the village, ensure high-quality site planning, architecture, landscape design that will complement and enhance the area and surrounding neighborhoods. So, I read certain points of that, but those are, there are provisions that allow you to have design criteria for this. So I
And-
wanted to point that out.
So that is already in our regulation.
That's our regulation for the Kensington Village Overlay District and allows for developments such as Newport, mixed-use development with residential as well as commercial uses. Within that regulation, you have provisions for with certain criteria, first floor commercial, residential not on the first floor, except you have some exception that you
Mhm.
amended a couple of years ago. But I think that that's in the right direction of what the secretary may consider an appropriate. Right? They may, there's the possibility they'll want it bigger, they'll want it more intense, they may. But at least we are fortunate in Berlin to have that already established, so it's less of an upending of the regulations than
That's why,
some other towns have to contend with.
Use your microphone.
it's on.
I know, Bob.
That's why I was, in the beginning, I was a little confused with this because I knew this part of the regulation is in there, because that took the longest time to get this paragraph in our regs. So basically, we need to modify that and add some language to go what's wanted now.
Not necessarily.
What is, yeah,
Right, so it's,
this section. So, but again, it's because you're doing it because you consider that district to be a transit-oriented district,
right,
okay? Just think about what I said earlier, right? And when I pointed out, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, it's this section. So you're looking ahead of 16. Well, no, it's saying about trans-oriented. It certainly is contemplating that it be a district created by the municipality. It's not just anywhere.
Yep.
So I don't understand what you're saying. My understanding is you have the option to create a transit-oriented district, and that has certain criteria associated with it, and that the regional COGs, whatever they are, is actually coming up with a design basis for those, and of which you have the option to adopt what their kind of their design or whatever, or you can say, no, we don't want to participate in that. We're going to do our own, like our Kensington overlay district.
The housing growth plan.
That's the housing growth plan? Okay.
Housing growth.
But, okay, so, but,
I don't think we're saying two different things.
no, but I thought you could have this transit-oriented district, which has its own set of rules, and that's where the rules on the ADUs and all that kind of stuff. But you also had this other part of the statute that says any commercial, any piece of property that's labeled, that's commercial in our sense, has this 2 to 9 option, not just in the transit-oriented district, like
So
the
that's-
Kensington.
Attorney Capolo commented on earlier. She believes the regulation, the statute is saying, because it all centered, and please forgive me if I'm wrong, but, or correct me if I'm wrong, is the transit-oriented,
District or whatever.
Oh, this,
definitional words, community, the middle housing, transit.
Yeah, middle housing.
Community housing is, because it's transit oriented, it means commercial within that transit oriented.
I did not read this to be that at all.
We had a little bit of a debate because.
I did not read this to be that at all.
As well, and.
That's a big difference. That's a huge difference.
I think is that section 16A, is that, am I in the right place? Where that,
I hope you're right.
I think that's where the,
Are we then ignoring the fact that it says transit oriented?
right, so that's where, and that's where she said, you know,
don't
the COG looked at when during the.
You don't have to ignore terms that are used.
The term.
They differentiate, well, it should say, you know, a community middle housing development in a transit-oriented district, to me, to be precise and clear. I know you didn't write the statute, but that's why it's ambiguous to me what they mean by it, and the stuff that I've read says otherwise,
But the point is-
but I'm not.
I think the point is if it forces us into this situation where we don't know what it means, that's gonna be something the courts are gonna have to look at. If this is such an unworkable or ambiguous or absurd definition, then it will be litigated. And the court may rule that this can't be applied because no one really can understand what it means. And then it's up to the court to figure out what does it mean. I don't know how they're gonna figure that out.
So I don't think you could ignore 14A.
And that's the point, is we're not gonna relieve the ambiguity or unworkable nature of the statute by leaving terms out. We have to work with what we have. As unworkable as it may be, we have to work with it.
Yeah, but by oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the commission can't go wrong by applying it to the transit or to the TOD zone. The zone
I agree with that.
Yep.
versus TOD. And then you have to make the decision as to whether you believe it's addressing or whether you want to actually include other districts.
That's the other.
No, I understand that, but
You can then
here's my dilemma now.
decide.
Look at the time frames on all this kind of stuff, right? That provision, the two by nines, whatever, that's in effect now. So how can it be in effect now if the OPM hasn't defined what the transit-oriented district criteria is? The, you know, the COGs are not finished, whatever. What's the purpose of making that effective on July 1st, 2026, if nothing that we need to do it exists. That's why I argue that I'm not sure that's the case, but I hope you're right. It's not how I read it.
Yeah,
And it makes no sense to have made that operative.
Yeah.
no, that circles back to why it's not unique that you didn't
Okay.
have
Oh, yeah.
regulations before July 1st, because there was kind of an expectation that we might, they
They
might
might, yes,
put this out
yes.
in their last session. It wasn't taken up. You know, and like I said, there was
Okay.
a public hearing that
But this is what
where
happens.
other critical minds could have questioned things that were confusing.
Everybody would have given testimony. It's not just people showing up, it's substantive written testimony. This all would have been fleshed out. You had legislators, on the committees who could have, gotten calls from lawyers in their community going, you guys are making a mistake here with this, don't do it that way. That's the process. And this is not the first time we've jammed something through like this. And I feel like this is just going to be the future.
So I think that leaves that interpretation more directly up to the commission. You know, you can say, it's not clear, this is the way we're reading it.
Okay.
And
Should say that.
I, you know,
Maybe that's what we should say.
that reading it as it's only the TOD district or it's all commercial districts and decide how you
Well,
want
to-
direct your new regulations.
To the other point, though,
Be responsive with the amendment to what you're comfortable amending.
well, say it's the way that you're saying it is, which is fine, but then we should also, at some point in time, do an evaluation of all our commercial districts, because it may behoove us to create to create another transit-oriented district, because one of the provisions on this whole thing is, and I don't know if we would ever take advantage of it, but it's only the transit-oriented districts where you're going to be able to take advantage of some of the financing and infrastructure improvements that they're willing to step behind. Everywhere else, you cannot apply them.
To the point of where I said we have bus routes, so you can define other districts.
Yeah, we-
Because they.
Do you think they have to be on in a train or a bus route?
So it becomes interesting, okay, and think back in time to 2021, I think, the fall of 2021, when they came out with the guidebook. Remember the guidebook out of the Department of Housing to craft your first affordable housing plan? Do you remember that? The analysis, one of the big pieces of it was to analyze, commercial properties that were not being put to use, that
Right.
were vacant.
Right.
Okay, so that's, again, I don't think there's as much recreating the wheel. I think much of this is because they, in part two, they felt that not all municipalities, because I heard all the chatter, not all municipalities did what they should have done in preparation of those plans, and they didn't take it seriously, and they didn't do the analysis, and they didn't set up goals, but they didn't do that underlying analysis of identifying properties that were being underutilized that could be used for housing, okay, that were not residential properties. So I mean, that's kind of the perspective from which you got to get back into that headspace of, that same analysis, in my mind, of, we know that there's issues with the renting of commercial space. We know that, for example, office space. Okay, so you have office zones, right? You've got so many districts of all of them, but maybe you want to come up with, like, North Haven just did a text amendment. There's a number of properties in a certain area of North Haven that used to be 2 families years ago, and they got rezoned into commercial for office space purposes, and they can't lease them. So somebody proposed a regulation, and it was discussed beforehand with staff and myself about
what the eligibility criteria would be, but they amended to be able to convert some of those properties back to two families because they just can't, they can't rent the space.
Mhm.
So those are the kinds of things I think every town has that. I do. I'm sure that I know exactly what areas you have it. But I mean, it's that same analysis that you're doing that they wanted you to do, when they came out with that guidebook in preparation for adopting your first affordable housing plan. That's supposed to still be effective for next year.
I just had a quick question about TOD. Can you have a residential building that's not mixed use in a TOD, or do you have to have some sort of first level that's commercial? Because my understanding is that's the whole idea, is you're supposed to have every building have some sort of component of walkable shops or.
That's what,
I think if it's new,
So my
But I
point is, if
think
you put if you
existing-
put a perfect sixes now in a TOD, is that what we're gonna have to do?
you,
Purpose when you did this transit. That housing in commercial districts. That the housing, but the transit,
the business.
Yes, I understand. Yep.
Okay, like this was perfect for train station area or Farmington Avenue.
Yep.
It's probably because now that Hudson Square is dying, that area's got vacant land, everything else, put some housing in there, and feed those commercial properties. It may be a housing building, in the places underneath it, when it feeds the commercial buildings
Understand.
around it,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So, and adding this wording that's come up tonight to our transit. I think
Yes.
we're ahead of the market and
By virtue of the fact
adopt it
that,
into this stuff in this transit district would be pretty easy in my mind. Okay,
All right, okay.
I mean,
That's my
it's-
question, actually.
yeah, and then,
agree with him. I mean,
Well, then that's,
I think he's spot on.
Yeah, okay,
is it
that's-
Hudson
thank you, Tim.
Square, is it Home Depot
Yep.
Plaza?
yep,
That area there's all small, businesses around the Home Depot that are starving now. It just feeds the same thing. And then I think it's a good idea. I really do. You want your business to stay alive. You want your town to stay alive. It's this brings a lot of taxes into town too. It just
I gotcha.
seems to be a win-win all the time.
yep, I hear you.
All the way across. Not that I want to double our population, but I think.
The Kensington overlay zone, it's a half mile from the train station. Is that what it is?
Circle on the map.
Yeah,
Um, Circle is the half-mile radius.
yeah,
It's in the box.
yeah. All right, so,
The village has a purple outline, I think. It was purple. Orange. Orange.
oh, you mean the square on the top?
Yeah, the Kensington Village itself. Yeah, so, no, if you're down here,
Yeah, I'm down there.
down in the overlay box.
Yeah.
It's outlined in orange
Oh, okay.
is the village district itself, and then in the different stripings is whether it's core 1, core area 2, or the redevelopment zone. So no, it doesn't stretch out for that full half mile because that half mile is the green circle. But locations such as
So the green circle is not is the half mile marker. However, the overlay is the orange line that goes around the CCD2 or whatever.
Time that you want to expand the TOD at some point or not.
Gray circle,
Have-
I look at it as the feed to that district.
That's the half mile, and the half mile is referred to in the statute, and the half mile is what we started with back when you adopted the Kensington Village District.
Right.
The idea was what is the easy walkable,
What's feed?
you know, with the half mile, a lot of people would walk a mile to get to the train. My daughter in Milford does it all the time, and it's more than a mile from her apartment to the train, and she walks it, so she doesn't leave her car there. But that's, she's not 30 yet. Oh,
That's her.
half mile is, really that, yeah, it should be able to walk that far to public transportation.
The half mile means a lot.
Right.
Walks, where you go put your sidewalks, gotta be walking.
Right.
So where you go spend your money to do improvements.
So that,
It all comes down.
And I will note,
well, it is walkable. It's got sidewalks.
Now,
both in the Kensington Village District, you have design criteria, you have areas where you have first floor residential, first floor commercial, but you might recall, most of you, not all of you, I don't think you're all on the board, that a couple of years ago, you amended the regulation to allow buildings that are so far back from Farmington Avenue
Yeah.
to have first floor residential because they're not on the street,
Okay, that answers.
so to speak. In the, yeah, and later in the draft, and you'll also see in the BTD regulation, which is the Berlin Turnpike Development Zone, which is how
Yeah.
Orsini's mixed-use project and Mr. Diadio's mixed-use project, were developed, that the residential had to be a certain distance off the Berlin Turnpike, 240 feet is where commercial could be, so that the commercial was up front, but allowed for residential on the same lot or on contiguous lots that added up to a certain
So-
acreage. So I'm reading this as the flexibility and recommending, some of the provisions I'm recommending in my, the write-up is that you can incorporate some of those criteria in another zone, in other zones, besides the Kensington TOD zone, if that's what you choose to do to allow middle housing.
Well, look,
Can I ask one more question about the map?
Thing. I've mentioned Webster Square. Okay. You can put a housing there and feed those businesses in Webster Square, get new businesses, right? Or over next to CLP, whatever. You could, but you're eliminating where these big multifamily complexes go. So you still have your family growing neighborhood around, and you're not getting you're designating where this is going. So it's a good adoption to those zones, because you're gonna be asked for this housing. It's in the.
This town has already, has implemented a lot of these provisions.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of now, I see it as a bit of an expansion of those provisions and or reframing them because of maybe these different types of housing that, we didn't think of like you said, the six, but we didn't call it out.
Perfect.
But but probably if somebody had come in with that design, it would have just been multifamily to you, and you would have evaluated it as multifamily housing. I'm sorry.
No, the
Chairman Daley, you were going to.
Well, I was just gonna ask a question. What is the red box here on the map? What is that? What does that mean? The red box?
Red box.
Yes.
Is a call out on a map that says go look at the box down here. So the red
Okay.
box is this entire thing.
That's the
All right.
overlay.
But
That's
if-
the thing that says there's a zoom in
Yeah.
of this area. You're in the big map. There's a zoom in of this. Go look to
Yeah.
the side and you'll see the zoom in.
All right, so here's my question. If we did something like that and like Tim brought up Webster Square and even Ocean State Job Lot, that whole area in there needs help, and we all recognize that. But if we did something like that, I think it would be like a little too overwhelming with what we already have going with this green circle here. So would there be a way to manipulate it to bring the Kensington overlay to make it work down Farmington Avenue and to include the Webster Square? In other words, instead of driving it out toward Parish Drive, Alling Street and all those others, pull it back, because that's already established
I
housing.
think you have, your half mile radius is a radius. It has to have the point in the middle. The point in the middle is the train station. So that half mile radius has to go in all, or southeast and west of the train station. That circle remains the half mile radius. However, if I'm understanding your question correctly,
Could you pull it into an oblong thing?
of your zones, and that happens to be the
Yeah, PSA or something.
PSA?
PS, well, no, hold on.
Yeah, PSA.
Where am I? Yeah, PSA,
It's PSA.
yeah,
As
Webster Square.
is the commercial area where Rogers IGA used to be on Chamberlain Highway.
Yeah,
That is our other PSA. And there has been inquiries, and we're actually expecting that there probably will be a proposal for mixed use over there for some regulation change that allows mixed use. Or maybe a planned development zone, overlay, the planned development district, maybe they're exploring what they're able to do to make that area vibrant for the commercial to have the residential
Yeah.
activity that will drive the commercial and support the commercial uses over there as well. So you can choose to look at your zoning anywhere and say you want, and I think the bus goes, not sure, I was gonna look at the bus routes, but didn't have.
yeah, I think it stops at the
It's-
dollar store or
But I
something.
think it goes that way.
Yes.
So-
One that goes out on the turnpike over to the Comcast building.
Right, and then goes down, and, you can
I mean,
the provisions to the zones you want to.
yeah, because,
Specify the zone with certain criteria
yeah.
without connecting. You don't have to connect the TOD
Well,
there.
I guess it's
to
just,
Another section that you don't have to make a connection between the two. You can have two separate.
I just didn't want to
area.
absorb the whole town with all these half-mile circles all over the place.
the-
I was trying to pull it in.
That is from the train station, unless we have another train station or other
Oh, God, no.
rapid.
Transit.
hub. This is the half mile. Reading that right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, no, but I mean, I was trying to take it.
The only place the half mile from rapid transit is, because that's our.
Yeah,
rapid Transit stop.
all right.
How does this then apply to every town? Because not every town has
They-
train station or a bus station.
provisions that speak to communities that are adjacent to one with a rapid transit stop. And they do talk.
They're not off the
I
hook.
Skipped copying those pages for you. They're in the
Pretty much every,
Well, I would
entire
say
document
that.
you have.
I mean, I know of TODs where obviously there's no train and there's.
I'm talking about some of the real rural areas that are really very, very poor on affordable housing. I thought this was,
Yeah,
no, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying, it's like, how does this only apply to TODs?
It can't, and that's a good point.
That's my point about all commercial.
Bus stops, yes, but in a rural area, I guess you could have a bus stop.
I
There
doubt
are
it.
bus stops
I
along
doubt it.
Chamberlain Highway.
I don't think there's a bus stop in Lebanon.
Greyhound,
Yeah.
once a week.
Maybe here, but not out there.
Turnpike's covered with buses now.
No,
You have to remember that
Yeah, but that doesn't mean our town has to be covered with them.
things with regard to housing that's affordable is that if the residents are seeking public transportation, you know, that's why the places that have public transportation are ripe for affordable units, is because part of that affordability is that they have access
Yeah.
to public transportation and jobs. How do you get to work? So there are some of those towns that historically had factories, so people were getting to their jobs, but now they're depressed because they no longer have the industry in those towns.
Right.
And those towns are working towards that, you know, because everybody wants that tax base, but presumably, you know, municipalities want that tax base. But, you know, that's why transit-oriented communities are focused upon, because that's how people get to work. And the people that get to work need a residence. And, you know, you might remember our economic development director worked really hard with DOT to get the bus to go into our industrial park at the south end of town, into New Park Drive. Because it didn't go south on the turnpike. And we worked with them for a number of years before we got that, and we got that a couple of years ago, and it's really, I understand very well used.
The bus is almost full.
Tops.
They couldn't get people to work at those factories on New Park. And when the bus line comes now the buses are almost full going in there, which is great. And that's why they made the bus now go northbound, you know?
We gotta bring them back.
You know, that's for shopping,
leave
you know, Home Depot and stuff. That's why it goes northbound now, you know? It all feeds that area.
Okay. Do we want to keep going, or?
Let's go on to, yeah, because we would really like to develop a regulation a bit and get some direction on what you want the regulation to include. So, you know, we talked about the definitions. Now we're talking about the fact that, you know, and I'll go back to, and I gotta stop using that cursor and use my cursor, sorry. The updated, going with, we're talking about the transit-oriented district. And again, you have the choice to go down in.
This is page 3 that you're on?
This is
So-
now page 3. Okay, so now I have
Page 3.
possible language. So I would suggest the way our regulations are set up, you have all your zones. And then you have later in the book, special regulations. And that's where we have senior housing, we have auto uses, we have all kinds of things with their criteria for that kind of use. And we're suggesting that you add a new subsection, FF would be the next number, provided nothing else gets approved before that, for middle housing, or call it transit community middle housing, which is where I think we're tending to lean, and the advice of council. With the purpose of this section is to allow for housing choice for middle housing in compliance with and that I'm gonna change that to read November Special Session Public Act 25-1, because there is another Public Act 25-1 that happened during the regular session. So we want to define that properly. And then have qualifying standards for that middle housing. And what are the qualifying language? And the reason I highlighted this, both places you see the yellow highlight. It's in the FF, it's the or. Do you want to just say middle housing, or do you want to say transit community middle housing, which is the definition that's in the statute? And then qualifying standards. And that goes to the discussion that Commissioner Miller facilitated, which was the subject tract of land is in a qualifying transit-oriented district. Or do you want to include any commercial zone or specific commercial zones as designated on the Berlin zoning map? So in my comment there is the commission should provide directions if the provisions for middle housing should be allowed in other commercial districts. So.
Okay.
You understand?
I guess I would have to look at the map to see where all my.
I see the map. So where are the big ones that are not in the Kensington overlay? Chamberlain Highway,
So there are most, you can see at the bottom of the map, you know, where,
or
in the bottom of the map where you have
Sussman
Sure.
property.
colors, or
Key.
the
Yeah.
commercial color key, thank you. I'm struggling with words.
Sorry, I had time to think before I had to talk, so. Then you have PSA here. And then under BT one. So BT ones and twos. All that, it's basically BT twos are all turnpike.
Right, it's the Berlin Turnpike 1 and the Berlin Turnpike 2. You have a couple of pockets that are general commercial. There's one in East Berlin, there's one on the Berlin Turnpike, I think just north of Route 9, I think that's the.
That's including commercial zone, so.
Right, it's one of, those are commercial zones,
Yeah.
but you can define which commercial zones. You can say, just like they, accessory dwelling units, you allow in certain ones of the residential zones, you don't allow in all the residential zones, you know, currently. And maybe amendment coming along, but.
I would think you'd,
Lots.
I would think you'd want to look at a couple of the commercial zones that would benefit from, they're non-performing as just strictly commercial zones and would benefit for, and I think that PSA A definitely would benefit from that. I don't know some of the other ones. There's a small strip of stores where like, in East Berlin on 372 that might benefit. Or
That's
not
the
Joe,
C zone probably that you're talking about.
what's in there? Where Uncle D's is, that area right there.
Zone is that?
I don't know. Can you find 372? Here's Bicentennial.
Isn't that Mill Street that goes in there? Yeah, it's Mill Street. So
There you-
here, Skyview.
I don't even know where I am anymore.
You go, if
Grounds.
you go do, you gotta look at the land and if there's availability, put multi-housing on the property, Uncle D's property and all that.
That's the one I just said.
But that's, there's no room to put multi-family housing. on that
If you go
property.
up, there is,
Well,
right?
That's it. PSA right there.
All right, that's a small PSA zone. Yep.
But it's next to a PR2, but that's Stony Mill.
That's Stony Mill.
That's already developed. There's
Yeah.
the OT zone.
And you mentioned the Webster Square, that's a PSA zone too.
T zone. Basically,
What's
Yes.
OT?
that's where you go off onto Route 9. You know, how there's the overpass, you've gone past Uncle D's on your right.
That's the Golden Triangle, isn't it?
No, this is
No.
not.
Movie theater,
The
which is
Golden
going down,
Triangle.
So,
great place.
9, you know, Middletown Road, you go from Middletown.
It's going out of business.
Take a right to get onto Route 9.
You know.
Cut over by Bethany Church,
Yeah,
the OT zone. That's.
okay.
uh,
I hear it, I see it.
That's where Uncle D's is.
Yes, that's, okay, I agree.
That's where. Everything's doable. I mean, that's right on an exit.
What's right on an exit ramp?
This. There's a-
Oh, the OT you're saying, okay.
that
Not
thing.
much in there,
What is in there? What is?
just a church, right?
Right here.
This is an OT.
The one at, where Uncle D's is. So there's a few commercial uses in there. They've changed over the years. I don't actually know what's.
Oh,
There's a pizza place, there's a package store, there's a nail place, there's this kickboxing place, there's a Uncle D's is there, there's a awning place, there,
It sounds fairly full.
yeah, there's a nail place.
May or may-
I never actually, yeah, I.
It's full right now, but that where that kickboxing thing was a bicycle shop before. That one's been mixed, whatever. They're run down, they're unattractive. You know, there's a lot of,
Yeah, the SBDD is the Golden Triangle.
On both sides of Mill Street,
Now, remember, you did look at, you do have the regulations that were amended last year with regard to particularly the Berlin Turnpike corridor. That was, your main
Yes.
focus.
Oh,
And we haven't really seen yet the results of some of those amendments that may make
big difference.
vibrancy,
Yeah.
because they did, you changed a bunch of uses from special permit uses to site plan uses,
Yeah,
which should promote
Generate,
development. Yeah, generate interest in development, because it's less of a process for a business owner to develop something. But again, and that's within the year, so, or
yeah.
just over a year, I think it was May. But, not a lot of time yet, action, reaction. So, I think you want to consider being thoughtful as opposed to a wholesale change,
Yeah,
in my opinion, but I'm extremely cautious. I'm just a cautious individual.
Good thing to be as a planner.
yeah, it is.
But, not that I don't encourage some of the zones. And like I said, you do have the regulations that you've developed over the last 10 or more years. And you mentioned them in the residential zones early before the meeting, but the housing opportunities and different ways to promote affordable housing and variety of housing.
Yeah,
And I was gonna say the BTD zone is the biggest, I think.
I mean, to me, there would be an advantage of clawing back the rules that we have on these motels to make them, okay, tear them down, build them up, but make them a multi-use type.
So instead of the planned
And-
infill,
Right.
expand because that was to modernize the motels.
Right.
The housing, but maybe you put
Make it a mixed use.
bigger provision in there that makes it
yeah,
more attractive.
one thing we should be considering is we were having churches close. Down at East Berlin, Sacred Heart, they just brought that up in the Facebook, whatever. And United Methodist Church, out in Chamberlain Highway,
Prince of
church
Peace.
out there, Prince of Peace.
That's all right.
What do we do with those properties and
Did on a couple of meetings, but it's been some time that we are expecting a text amendment to be proposed from, a source as opposed to the staff doing it, but with staff guidance for reuse of, certain structures in residential zones. Those are in residential zones.
yes,
So I think you want to be cautious to separate it from this that
Yeah.
really deals with commercial areas
Mm-hmm.
onto residential, but it is for reuse, and particularly one of the aspects we brought in was buildings of a certain age and size to be adapted because they're not conducive to being
Yeah.
renovated into a single family residence. We have a couple of huge houses on
the only reason that comes
Yeah.
to my mind
properties on.
is two
in-
churches
in-
right next to my house almost,
We have the two
that
the
are
several
vacant.
churches. That, at the Prince of Peace Church, you did get the use that is another use allowed in the zone for a nonprofit, but that there aren't that many of those to fill up all the churches, and there's a lot of interest for
Right.
residential in those
Yeah.
residential zones. But, so we do have something else, but again, that's looking at
Yeah.
other zones and other types of regulations. We're
A lot of
mainly
space,
trying
less
here to
than-
focus on responsiveness to PA, special session PA 25-1.
Yeah.
So that we can
So let me go
Not-
back.
get in the position where someone comes in and goes, well, you don't comply, so we're just going with what the bill says. We want to have the regulations in place that give the permit.
Yeah. So let me go back to Diane or Steve Biella to see if they have any comment or questions at this point.
I got nothing.
Ugh,
No, nothing at this time.
I
Thank
know.
you.
I know, it's hard. It's hard, I know. Okay, well, it's not like we're gonna get anything settled tonight anyway. We
So-
might have a little point of a direction or some more
That's
work
what-
to do.
So that the.
Yeah.
Actually put the regulation into a proposed regulation draft
Mhm.
that you can either have a public hearing for, or you can decide you want to
Yeah,
Okay, I got you.
reiterate.
I got you.
yeah.
But we're looking for the direction, and that's where the italic print on this is. If the commission can give us some direction. And so on this, on number one there, the qualifying standards, I see that you're, really thinking you want to possibly look at some of the other districts and see if we can add some language for. some-
Well,
some
yeah.
of
Well, I would look at them, inventories of what's there and what's not very desirable to the town per se, that would benefit by doing something like
Yeah.
this.
Oh, exactly, to revitalize it.
But the problem is like that, but then if you go to your next one, if you're gonna make them all mixed use, then that may defeat the purpose, because some of these may be in locations just not amenable to commercial.
And.
Yep.
So I don't know if you'd wanna,
It's a Commercial zone.
yeah, even though it's a commercial zone, I don't know. I can't think of one, but
There.
might be one down in
That-
East Main Street in East Berlin or something.
Would it be better to? And I'm spitballing here, brainstorming, I guess I should.
Just pray, spitballing.
I'm brainstorming here. But if that's the case where you have a commercial zone that don't want mixed
Pure.
use, would that be something that might be better to be considered to change the zone of,
Oh, that might be,
as opposed to change, to excluding commercial activity?
okay,
Again,
yeah.
you can also put as part of a mixed use or residential development, or you can have words that say part of a mixed use development with business uses, like I said, located at street, and again, that came straight from the Kensington Village overlay wording. But you might be able to say in some other zone that if it's the qualifying standard is commercial zone outside the transit oriented district, that the commission otherwise determines is appropriate for residential only. I can't think of good wording right now, but that would be the commission otherwise determines. And you can do that in your regulations. I think they can do that. So consider that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put that as a comment here. Not a program I use a lot, so.
That's
I
okay. Don't worry.
have to look for the command. So.
Yeah. Already says, yeah.
Don't be messing with South Kensington now.
RA six, two acre lots. So. R is. Mount Reserve, yeah. Bigger lot, yeah.
So it's 86 and then 43s and stuff down.
Yep.
So I don't know it, in the Kensington overlay district, is there a limit to the number of stories you can have?
Yeah, all districts have
This is.
table criteria. Did I may or may not have?
OP.
Is it at least 4?
No, I think it's 2.
It's gotta be at least 3.
No, because the Kensington overlay is Newport.
Okay,
Newport, that's
well, it's 3 then.
Was 4 originally.
Just.
Then he came.
What I'm asking is, I think you have, what my understanding is, you have to make every lot that's in this district capable of providing the type of houses that are allowed. So you, for example, so you can't say, you have to have mixed use and you can only go up 3 stories and then you took away the perfect sixes. Get what I mean? Yeah, but with
Yeah, but
with
with-
another floor of commercial underneath it. So that's all I'm saying. We gotta be cognizant of
Yeah,
that.
we have to be careful because if you start putting 4-story buildings around these in certain parts of town that we think need to be boosted, but then they're maybe surrounded by residential, like 1/4 acre lots or something, but they're only houses.
Again, the commercial zones, I'm gonna pull up the commercial zones. And get back to the bulk table. Because I think we're gonna find there at least 3 stories.
And then we should discuss about when our next meeting will be. Because this is overwhelming. I don't know if I want to go home and cry or what.
But I think this has been a healthy discussion.
No, it's
No,
been,
we-
it's been
that-
healthy. I
we'll
think
be back
everyone,
with-
I haven't heard much from June and not too much from Tim.
Tim's been talking.
Yeah, but not, you know.
She don't agree with me,
I didn't say that. No, 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 don't go there.
That's a point.
You've got some good points. I might have yelled at you because I know Diane's probably hanging on the line trying to figure out what you're saying, but without your microphone, I know you hate that thing, but what are you gonna do? How are you gonna be? How are you gonna be?
We're gonna serve, we'll make it.
I don't know.
Building height, stories and feet
Oh, jeez.
is right here.
And that is,
Sure, in 100 years, none of us are gonna be, so who cares?
Get-
Be
got-
less than 100.
I got less than,
That's my point. Well, we'll
I
make
got
it.
less than that.
Won't be here in 20
let's-
probably.
I don't know, I'm thinking 30. Well, no, maybe I won't even make 30.
Well, I
I
think
might make 25.
you never know, Joe.
It's really tough, man, when you start thinking that that's it, you're wrapping
I'll
up.
be here, right here.
I'm pulling, Jesus, I've been here a long time.
Should gavel.
That's my gavel.
So here,
I only had to use it once.
you can see the commercial zones.
Yeah, you can see it. I can.
Oh, I can't see that. I can't read
Okay.
that. Okay, all right. I hope
Across
I don't
the
get,
pages, all like the commercial zones.
okay.
Special use zones. We do have special use zones and some of those are
Right.
commercial.
So
oriented.
maximum building height, 2.5 stories.
So 2.5 and 35, but here we have 40 feet. Here we have 5 stories.
5 stories, what?
2.5 in the GC.
Where did we go with that?
2.5 in the BT1. So it is 2.5 in the BT1. I'm sorry, I misspoke on that one.
Oh, perfect.
4 in the BT.
How can it be 2.5 in the BT1? We have a 4 or 5 story building with the Dadios.
Because that's the BTD
Oh, that's
own
BTD?
overlay.
Oh,
We got too many zones.
2.5 and 4 in the CCD too. So
well, again, that's how I read it. You have to allow it for every type of house. Is that true? You can't have zoning that keeps out certain types. Like you can't keep out a triplex by not allowing it to be built or something like that because you put a zoning restriction in. That's my understanding.
So we should be careful what we wish for.
No, you have to accommodate it, I believe, in a
In
trans.
that,
in-
yeah, in that zone.
Right,
But
so you may
then
not
if
be able to
want
do what you want
extend
in
it to
other
something
zones.
else, you gotta be careful.
So I might suggest in that case that we,
You wanna open this up again?
put a,
Ha, ha, ha.
put a
Caveat? No?
footnote. You know, on many of the bulk tables, you have footnotes that then allow an exception. And the exception being a footnote 10, whatever number it is, that says, transit-oriented middle housing as defined, allowed to be of these types, and then allow it for those developments. Only not for anyone who comes in and decides they want to do a 4-story office building or 5-story office building. Instead, they get it's one of the defined things. That's what I would suggest.
Okay,
Um,
excuse me.
Direct me otherwise.
Ugh.
So earlier, we talked a little bit about, when we talk about the types of buildings, whether it be a townhouse, duplex, triplex, whatever, that
Oh, yeah,
many,
cottage.
that many, a cottage, that's a whole different animal though, but it's like a perfect six. The question becomes, so that's one building. So the question becomes, is it allowable to have more than one building on a parcel? And do we need to can we put things in there that put limits on how many dwellings can be on a particular size parcel? So we don't get into this
So
crap over like we did on Little Houses.
I think
Yeah.
it's important to read the language again, but my understanding from reading it, my takeaway, reading through it was the 9 can be like it's per parcel.
Okay.
And then you can have those 9 in multiple buildings or 9 in one building, but not multiple buildings not 9 buildings that allow 9 units. That was my takeaway when I read it.
Yeah, because like if you look at E1 on the bottom of page 45,
45.
a qualifying transit-oriented community shall allow the following developments as of right in any transit-oriented district. A, transit community middle housing developments if such development contains 9 or fewer dwelling units.
Dwelling units is apartments, not the number of units.
It's the number of units.
Okay.
No,
But I mean, it's not,
definition.
okay, well, that's what I'm asking.
It's defined as a kitchen,
Yeah,
living.
well, I'm saying it's like
Kitchen area,
a 6 dwelling units could be one building,
right,
a perfect 6.
yep. But that's,
6 pack.
it's still 6 units, 6 dwelling units, and that's why I'm reading it as 9 or fewer the development.
I call them
contains 9
cozy
or fewer.
cottages.
But it doesn't say anything, unless I'm not reading it right, that says per parcel.
That's oh.
I'm just asking, I don't know, it was ambiguous. Okay,
Might include unified development with multiple parcels, but on any single parcel,
okay.
we review it as the development of the parcel. The zoning applies to the parcel as a whole.
Okay,
not
so some,
second building, and that's a separate development from the building that already exists. The parking, the drives, the landscaping, all deals with the overall parcel, although
okay, so
your development may may include multiple parcels.
elsewhere, it talks about developments that are over 9 units, up to 16 units, and then coming in with affordable units. So if it's no more than 9 per parcel, how can I have a 16-unit development?
It's a new category.
Yeah,
Allowances.
it's a
We're
different.
now allowing something else.
Okay. But is that our discretion whether we let it in, or are they allowed to just do it?
Well, in 13E, that is as of right, that A1 or 1A that I just read,
Uh-huh.
1A, that's as of right in a transit-oriented district.
Well, we've defined that that's what we're talking about.
district. So which is why Maureen put it into your draft amendments.
Where are you?
The
I'm
bu-
45. That one here, that one A,
That's
right
fine.
here.
Got it.
E1,
E1.
highlighted in yellow and then in green.
But if you
Okay.
go to,
What are you saying?
but it goes
Developments
to
that
B.
contain 10 or more dwelling units or not less than 30% of such units qualify for set aside. Again, so how do you have more than 9 units per parcel?
because
Because he's doing 8-30G.
No. No. This just says they now have to have,
So I think
So I
he's skipping to
think that-
3. He's skipping to number 3.
I'm skipping 3.
No.
Development that result in the development of 10 or more dwelling units as of
Oh,
right.
No,
So similar to subdivision 1 or 2, right? Is that what you're
Yes,
going to on the next page?
yes.
yeah,
In-
developments that contain.
May
10 or more
enact
units.
zoning regulations that require commercial use.
Well, because it's referring to like 1B, says development that contain 10 dwelling units.
I don't read it that way.
I think we'll,
It almost looks like there's 2 separate options.
Thought there was something somewhere that talked about 16 units too. Oh, that was parking. You're right. No, you're right.
as well, but it's definitely parking because they had a guffaw at that.
But then that's not even relevant if you can only have 9 units. So what are they talking about saying over 16 units?
Because that's any part,
That's any part, anywhere. Okay. This is clear as mud to me. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
to me. This, I mean, reading this is like so confusing.
there's, that may not be
Thought of,
thought of.
yeah,
So have you asked these questions? Gives us oh,
Okay.
now we see why that's confusing to the commission and we'll think, okay, let's revisit it so that we can guide you with
Yeah.
the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Or you guys can debate how you interpret it. That's the bottom line.
okay.
And
developments that
contain 10 or more dwelling units, not less than 30%. Qualifies
So we have to go back to.
Oh,
what-
Irrespective of that, I guess, should we start to, well, again, if we're saying only 1, 2 to 9 on a parcel, that's different than, I mean, if it was a big parcel, can they put more than one? One
what this-
building? I don't know.
I think we've reached a good stopping point, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry, because at least it,
I just summarize
yes,
my thought process and what I would like you guys to think about if you use this as kind of your little guidebook.
yeah.
For where we're headed.
No, this is good information. you gave
handout.
us, yeah.
That then, oh, and I did it again. This is the thing instead of mine. So in the regulations, various regulations you have, like in the BTD, in the Kensington overlay, you have qualifying standards, you have criteria for approval, you have bulk requirements. If you have concerns with regard to any of those categories and provisions you'd like to include in
Yes,
one of those, a criteria for approval, and so for one, I put in there as an idea along the Berlin, if you were to consider the
Berlin Turnpike.
Berlin Turnpike zone, along the Berlin Turnpike, residential uses are to be set back 240 feet. That's one of the criteria because it matches BTD. I mean, it could be anything. You could modify it, but those are the criteria. One of the other things you have in several of your residential amenities. Do you want there to be a required amount of outdoor space in relation to the size of the property or, whatever, or for units? Right now, I think in some of the zones, you have like a 200 square feet per unit in one
Yeah.
zone or side. 200 stands out in my head in one of the zones. So, just, or a common amenity. Do you want there to be something that's common?
Walking trails or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, in most of your multifamily regs, you allow the developer to offer amenities that are, fitting to his business model. But, and not a specific amenity, you have to have a fire pit. You don't say you have to have a fire pit or you have to have a playground. You let him offer the type, and I think that's appropriate, but again, you may have specific things you want to include. You've got blowback a couple of times on that, though.
We don't
Well,
care.
In Beckley Farms,
Yeah.
when it first came in 2003
Well,
or
yeah.
5 or whenever, certain amenities were the vision. And
Yes.
then they found the market, the residents, they didn't want that amenity at all.
Yeah.
Whether it's a gazebo or something else, and instead wanted a building, that kind of.
Yeah.
So, some of that,
So I guess one of the things would be
bulk requirements.
like something like you mentioned, like the BT1 or whatever, with a 240-foot, whatever. With that restriction, how many properties does that take off out, as feasible?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we gotta,
Well, I know, but I'm saying as far as if you made it one of these districts, one of the things that you cannot do is put provisions on something that automatic make it impossible to do.
Exactly.
So I don't think you can do things like that.
thank you for your pen. I
just-
usually have an
like I
extra
said, I
one,
tried
but
to
I
follow
didn't.
Other regs, at least the base, but
But
Yeah.
I'm looking at in my,
is it determined that,
Right.
that might
oh,
be.
in my,
little.
in my head, I don't know where all these motels are, they're in BT1 zones and BT2 zones, right? We'd knock them all out. They wouldn't be able to do it. They're not 240 feet from the road. The back of their property's not even 240 feet from the road, so I guess we gotta be careful with that kind of stuff.
Or you could amend the infill to allow for this use as well.
Right.
And it's kind of the exception to the rule because they're non-conforming properties. So that's where the residential infill reg spoke to giving forgiveness of some of the other dimensional requirements because you're making something non-conforming into something more conforming. Right? Because it's allowed.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of mechanisms to do that. So that's
Okay.
a good question as well. So anyway, I just, was still brainstorming as I went through this, bulk requirements, clustering, as you said, building configuration, height, some of the other dimensional, and the application process. And again, that goes back to, and there may be other provisions as well that you want to include, but these are basics. I worked off some of the other complex regulations. The application process and what summary review means for administrative staff, administrative commission, or something else, some hybrid of that. So at the very end of this document, were my first brainstorm considerations for the commission to think about. So that's just a list to keep in mind, to refocus you, because like you're going to get home and you're going to.
Can we just try to get some, and you may know, there was just something I read that said there was some level of ambiguity about the mixed use or whatever and whose decision it was, whether it was the person wanting to do the development or whether it was the Planning and Zoning Commission. So to make sure that we actually have the right to mandate mixed use on all these parcels in a transit-oriented development zone. Okay, I'm just asking that because I read something that it's ambiguous because there's a word in there that says or, and it was not clear
Yeah.
whether it was the purview.
Whether you could do one or the other, or you had to do one or the other, or if you could do both. If you could do different things in different districts.
Right.
Okay, that's an interpretation of war too, right?
Yeah.
So some towns did choose to do that. They
Right.
chose to do different things in different districts. They chose to offer the option either or. The other thing, and this is in Maureen's list too, and I think this kind of answers your question in a way.
universally, we have heard that design guidelines are in play, meaning that you can impose design guidelines. So I think that's a very important piece too.
Wow.
When you're talking about.
Yeah, I read that too.
stores,
Yeah.
How everybody does, that's one thing everybody agrees about. And you do have some design guidelines. Maureen has noted that in her draft to you, so you want to, I think, revisit what those are. And think about those and think about, how they've been applied. Is there anything that you do want to change about that? And then we do, I think we would be remiss not pointing out too, she has in her list, if an affordability component should be required. We have heard sort of the preposterous position that, you can't impose an affordability requirement. That to be true. I mean, I think, yes, it's certainly, and we looked at, again, subsection E of, it was E1B, of section 13, we just revisited that again. There's an affordability requirement in there, but in terms of, otherwise requiring, I strongly encourage, Maureen has it in your draft. She has it at 20%. Let's face it, it's your 20% regulation that resulted in you reaching 10%.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
So just,
They want
Keeps you ahead.
Yes.
The
The head of the curve. Yeah.
Place that, or the small developments and, in my proposal, I didn't, I had a 5 or a 10 unit threshold. So the people that are proposing 4 units, that may be more prohibitive, and you're going to get the argument from any developer as to where the breaking point is of the number of market rate units versus affordable units that it's feasible, financially. So not being in marketing, I think I chose 10, and 10% being one of those 10 units. But something less than that, and maybe because like we're discussing up to 9 units, maybe 5
2
units
units,
that you
yeah.
decide you want to have, or somewhere in between.
Or 2 units or something out of the 7 or 9.
But that's it. That is super, super, super. So ultimately, you do not know what you're doing.
Yeah, because all your numbers are going to shift. All right.
just one last,
Okay. Yes.
Last page,
Oh,
it's the next section, which is the parking that
okay.
Commissioner Miller commented on with, there was some ambiguity in the first public act that was, I don't remember the number, but it said units less than 16 and units more than 16 and left 16 out. fixed that. So they fixed that, and it's 16 units or less. Now, no parking is required. So I'm suggesting that the parking table in section 9B be amended to comply with what the statutes.
so here's the problem. Here's the problem.
Where are they going to?
You're going to say, I need multi-use, which means you have commercial. You can mandate parking for the commercial side of it, not for the residential side of it. But however, you may get into situations where you invalidate the ability for certain parcels to be used. So it's a can of worms here a little bit. I'm looking at some of the houses on Farmington Avenue,
There is,
if they can put they can use the parking that they have today to put up residential, but then they won't have any parking for the commercial side. But because we're not allowing the residential, we could get in trouble. So,
And then where will they park? And they will park somewhere. So you got to think about that. Is that,
unable to have.
or they're going to park in somebody else's commercial.
anyways,
So you're kicking a can down the road.
yeah, park at the train station.
I didn't highlight it. I may not have even printed that part of the page. A provision for, what's it called? The parking feasibility or parking threshold assessment, parking assessment. once they hit a certain size,
Right.
having a parking assessment that where the town can say, you got to provide to us why you don't need parking, but that
Well,
is.
this was for developments over 16 units. So again, that's my question on this 2, 9, but yet we got these provisions that say you got to do something if I got over 16. It doesn't all make sense to me.
And.
I don't
certainly
know. I don't think it makes sense to them.
of it in transit-oriented development areas is the presumption that, or the ability in a transit-oriented development that you don't need a car or you don't need a second car. You know, each person in the household doesn't need a car, might need one, but you don't need 2 or 3 because you're getting to work on the train, you're getting to work on the bus. And that then gives the reason for allowing these types of developments in the transit-oriented areas as opposed to in all your commercial areas. And so there's another argument for that might, the intent. What's the intent?
As we moved out into the community away from our center.
Not sure you're actually on.
I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as we move away from the center, are they going to use that half mile again to like bus routes for public transportation too? I mean, we can't just do the train.
So in the qualifying bus, I think they do use the half mile actually, as well in the definition.
Qualifying buses transit community means a municipality that, and I may not be reading the right position, but I'm starting here, means any municipality that contains not less than 1 regular bus service station operating not less than 5 days a week within the transit-oriented district adopted by such municipality. By
Gobbledygook, gobbledygook.
reasonable size determined by the secretary,
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah. And includes land of such municipality located within 1/2 mile radius of such station or is located within a reasonable distance as determined by the secretary or the secretary's designee of any other transit service, commercial corridor, or downtown area of such municipality. And I would think that particularly where we have highway areas, that the walkability may factor into the commission, let alone the secretary's determination, because you can't get there except driving on or walking where it may not be so safe, although there are sections with sidewalks that may say that, or may mandate, okay, your frontage gets to the bus, so therefore you have to put a sidewalk on your frontage, and then at the end of it, or at a bus stop at that location. Again, you have the word here that say, the bus service regular bus service station operating, and I think I'd like to look into a little more the differences where they talk about the buses, because we didn't really focus on that
No.
so far in our analysis. But, in New Britain, they have the rapid bus station, the hub, and versus just a bus stop. So I'd like to see what this,
Nobody's.
I want to look at that regulation a little more, scrutinize it a little bit more to see what it's
Yeah.
talking about as far as where buses, where it applies to buses.
Yeah.
Bus routes.
So I don't know. I'll ask Diane and Steve if they have anything else. I think they did. There's not, they're probably asleep, yeah. I don't blame them.
I'm here, but I don't have any comment.
Okay, Steve Biella, anything from you?
Gonna
Yeah,
walk
he's
us
gone.
point.
Okay, well, he's probably exhausted, but anyway. We should set our meeting for the next go round to do this discussion session? Because I don't think that we want to discuss this and add it on to our
A regular.
planning and zoning. Do you agree? I mean, I know it's hard, but can you make 6:30 instead of 7?
So I think, right,
What?
I don't have what's coming up on your calendar and all the dates of other meetings. But right now, the next 3 Thursdays at least are already taken. You know, you
Mhm.
have your regular meeting next week.
Then I have
The POCD
POCD
Implementation Committee has a meeting the 30th.
30th, and then we're
Have a
back.
Meeting on
planning
the
and zoning.
6th. No, the 23rd was canceled because there's a P and Z meeting and it was rescheduled
For the 30th.
Um,
And then.
So
the 6th
that's
is
on the,
planning and
so that's already 3 meetings, which means some of you, including staff, will have had 5 or 6 Thursday night meetings in a row.
Okay.
So going to the very next August meeting
7th,
and then having them
15th.
the third Thursday in August as well seems like a lot right now without looking at people's schedules.
Okay.
So I might suggest people look at their schedules and then consider bringing this up as a scheduling of a meeting at next week's meeting.
Okay. All right. So next week we'll talk about it.
If that.
That's fine.
Is that, that's allowed, right? Because it's just a discussion meeting for this.
Yes, and I think we'll just continue to work on the, you have some specific.
And then perhaps after this discussion this evening, we'll have more questions.
You know, what we
It's a lot.
ideally would like to do is prepare an update to this document
Yeah.
that responds to the comments made tonight and some of the questions.
Maureen, I just wanted to point out, I don't see the POCD meeting on the town website for the 30th. I'm sure, I mean, obviously it's it's been scheduled, it's just there. That's all.
Discussed that last week.
It's still not there, because I actually, it was funny, it was funny because I had looked and I saw, I was like, oh, it's been canceled this month, but you're right. The intent is to have it scheduled for the 30th. That's, I remember now, and now I'm looking in the town website and it's not there.
And
I'll
now
double
with this,
check
we'll
that.
have a lot to talk about at the.
Oh, can you imagine what that's gonna be like? Oh, my God.
Trying to put POCD and then this together is gonna be.
Well, remember the
Yeah.
PCD is really, the implementation committee is reporting of.
I'm gonna say I have nothing to report.
As to what they're doing to facilitate their goals.
Yeah.
So, you know, Park and Rec has done some things, Water Control has done some things, so it's really a reporting thing. It's not the regulatory commission. It's a guiding commission to make sure everybody's doing their part
Yeah.
to implement the plan.
Historic District Commission representatives can have plenty to say. I'll tell you that.
I'm just so glad. You'll be giving your 15 minutes of fame.
I think it's at least-
All right, now, okay, so that being said, motion to adjourn, that's good. I'll take it at 9:28 by Mr. Millard and then seconded by Ms. Daly. Further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, so moved. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, good night.
We missed you.
Good night,
Thank-
Diane.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Hold on, let me end the meeting for all if I can.